This video is going to walk you through the process of creating a study abroad program budget for any SF State exchange program. Today we're going to use the example of the University of Birmingham, but what I discuss here could be applied to any SF State exchange program. Let's get started. You want to begin on the SF State Abroad database. In the search field, find your intended program, click on it. Then you'll want to scroll down. This will direct you to the SF State Exchange Program budget page, where you will learn how you can put together a budget for any program. It has some really helpful information at the top on financial aid, but we want to scroll down until we actually come to the Create a Program Budget. This gives you an outline on how to put together a budget for any year-long semester or summer program. The accordion style information on the right-hand side will tell you how to fill out this information. Let's begin with tuition. This tuition amount assumes that you are an in-state, domestic San Francisco State student. If that's the case, this is your tuition. If you pay international student fees, out-of-state tuition, or you are a graduate student, please note that you'll still pay the same tuition as you would normally at San Francisco State. On all programs, you must have insurance. You'll notice that there's always going to be a line for insurance. This is mandated by the Chancellor's Office. To find out more details about the insurance as well as the current year's cost, please click on the Risk Management's website for more details. There's a lot of factors that do differ based upon personal choices, not always about program. It is very often two students participating in the same program may have very different program budgets. Therefore, we've created this site for you to create your own personalized budget. I encourage you to open the Excel document too, so you can enter in your own information as we go along. So let's begin with entering housing. Looking at that other website told me to go to back, and so let's open the program page to begin. Is going to be information on housing. Most programs do give you the choice, although some do have very specific requirements. This section here will tell me what is possible for this program. In this case, most students do choose to live in the dorms as they are guaranteed. However, students can and do live off campus if they would like to do so. We're going to begin by clicking here to learn more about housing at the University of Birmingham. We do this and we find a very lovely video. I encourage you when you have time to watch it. And then we find out information about both on campus and off campus. But for now, we're going to stick with on campus. So I click over to the student accommodation page and I can actually do a search on their website for housing. So in this case, I'm going to look for undergraduate housing. Maybe I don't have a particular price or preference yet, so let's just see everything that comes up for undergraduates. After doing some of the search, let's say I decide that Oakley Court is my top choice. It does have a shared bathroom, it has a kitchen, as I can see here in the picture. First, I'll do my own cooking, and it's £132 per week. To find out what this actually means in terms of a semester, a year-long budget, I would first Google the academic calendar for the University of Birmingham and find out how many weeks would I be there for a year. I've done so and found out that that would be 40 weeks. So let's find out what 40 weeks at £130 would be for me. I want to do that by going over to the exchange rate. So I want to find out what £132 is. I find that's $180 US. So I'm going to round that up to 181, of course, the exchange rate. Pulling up my Excel document, so now that I've determined that the cost of the housing of all campus at Birmingham is $181 per week over the course of 40 weeks, I see that the total cost for a year at Birmingham would be $7,240. Now that I figure out how much my housing budget is going to be, let's find out about food. So I click over here and I find that SF State has actually recommended a cost comparing link. This is an outside source that will compare anywhere in the world for you. To compare the costs of Birmingham, UK to San Francisco, California. This website can be really helpful because it offers percentages. it's not just telling me that it's going to cost X amount for food, but it's telling me that based upon what I normally spend now, food in Birmingham is going to be 36% cheaper than what I would spend in San Francisco. Now let's enter in the cost of food. So I've looked at the comparison chart and found that it is 36% cheaper in Birmingham. So if I'm spending $300 now per month on food and I want to know how much to save, I'm going to multiply this by 36% and I find out, okay, I'm going to save $108. So that means I'm still going to have $200 in my budget that I'm going to need to multiply that by 9, because that's the number of months I will be there, and find out that my food budget for a year at Birmingham should be about $1,800. But because I'm going to be more tempted to eat out and try new things that I won't be in San Francisco because I live there, I would recommend increasing this budget. So I'm going to increase this to $2,000. My advice is always to round up, have a higher budget. Any money that you don't end up spending in one category, you will be thrilled to have it in another one, such as travel or going out with friends. All right, so let's go ahead and put in the cost of airfare now. You can do this by Googling airfare tickets. You may not always get the most accurate estimate at this time. So to be in the Americas, maybe you're probably going to budget something under $1,000. If you're going to Europe, $1,500 is a good estimate. If you're going further than Europe, and especially if you're going all the way to Africa, I would increase it up to $2,000. So let's say we're going to put our budget for flight as $1,500. If I happen to get a ticket for a lot less than that, I actually now have extra money that I can be spending on travel. So let's look at transportation. So transportation is going to be things I'm going to be spending on a weekly basis to be a student to get around. Going back to this comparison website, I can see that transportation is actually 13% more expensive in Birmingham than it is in San Francisco. So I could use my current budget that I'm spending on transportation and increase that by 13%, doing the equation that I did before. However, knowing my personal habits, I probably will be taking the bus mostly to get around the city of Birmingham. So I've done a quick search for Birmingham Student Bus Pass, because I think that will be how I will do that. You may want to do your own research, also talk to alumni and international students. Now I'm going to check the exchange rate from my bus pass. So I was over here, found a bus pass for one semester is going to be 167 pounds. So I like to round up. I enter that here and I find that that's $230 in the US. So now I'm going to add that into my budget for Birmingham. Switching over to my Excel sheet now that I've got my $1,500 for my flight there, I want to add $230, but because I'm going to be there 2 semesters, I'm going to add it in twice, once for each semester. And now I have my budget at almost $2,000. I could also round this up. And in fact, I think I will, just because I might find other ways that I want to travel that I haven't taken into consideration. Next, we find the visa section. To get this answer, you're going to want to simply Google student visas for each country. Most countries, the cost of the student visa for one semester and for the year is identical. The UK, however, is the exception. There is actually a difference in cost for the semester versus the year visa. So since I am doing a year-long budget, I am going to look for the year-long student visa. After doing a quick Google search to find the student visa, I've identified this tier 4. I will go directly on the UK's website to find it. Please note you are not, nor should you be applying for the student visa at this time. You are only doing enough research in order to determine the cost of the visa. In this case, we have found that it is going to be £348. I do a new conversion rate of this and find that this is going to be $477. The UK is one of the most expensive student visas you're going to be applying for, so I'll need to factor this into my application. I have now added that to my budget here. For other expenses, this can be a bit of a wild card because it really depends upon your personal spending habits. Because of that, I do recommend looking back at that cost comparison website. Returning to this website, we can see that personal care is 17% cheaper in the UK than it is in San Francisco. Again, these percentages are super helpful because this takes into account your personal spending habits. I'm going to estimate that for a year in the UK, with all those establishment costs and what I would normally spend, I'm going to say $3,000. Again, I like to be a bit generous because I figure anything that I'm putting that's too high will automatically spill over into my travel budget, and that's really where I want most of my money to be. So let's find out how much are we spending right now. So we have calculated that to spend a year at the University of Birmingham, it's going to be just under $23,000. That may seem like a lot of money, but actually that's a lot less than spending a year in San Francisco. If we were to Google the cost of San Francisco State, we would find that a year at San Francisco State, if we were to live on campus, would be $29,123. So my $23,000 does come in significantly under. Granted, I haven't yet added in my travel, and my travel might bring me up to the cost of San Francisco, but I could go abroad to the University of Birmingham even with my flight and spend less money than it would cost me to stay in San Francisco. The only time this might be different if you currently live with your family and therefore don't have to pay rent. On study abroad, of course you will, but in most cases, most programs do come in much less than the costs remaining in San Francisco. Please watch the next video for more details about how to put together a travel budget so you can finalize your study abroad program budget.